My name is Jared Forman. I'm the chef owner of Deadhorse Hill Restaurant in Worcester, Massachusetts. I love Central Massachusetts. I love being part of New England. It's a quick drive to Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. There's so much to see and do here. I spent most of my career in New York. I'm from New York. I worked at places like Per Se and Gramercy Tavern. I worked at Maria making unbelievable pasta. And I was at Momofuku Sambar for 3 years. So ramps are a type of allium. The allium family consists of garlic and leeks and onions and shallots. Basically all the things that make your food delicious. It's one of the wild things in the woods. There's a similar one in Europe called ramsons. Any chef worth his salt knows about ramps. First time I ever read about them was in Alfred Portale's cookbook. It was a seasonal cookbook, and the first page you open up and the start of the season, the way he called it, was ramps. The end of the winter, you kind of hitting that doldrums point, and you're just aching for something green. And the first edible thing out in the woods that's green are ramps. It almost starts this culinary explosion in your mind about the possibilities of what spring is going to bring you. And so right at the end of March and the very beginning of April is when ramps start picking up in the Northeast. They'll start kind of North Carolina area and work their way up the eastern seaboard. They just kind of grow in deciduous forests. But the great thing about being in a place like this, where there's ramps that grow 15 minutes away, you just have this even deeper connection to the food. Had no idea where to find them. And I was driving around it one day, took this big turn down a winding New England road, gorgeous scenery everywhere, and I just saw one ramp out of the corner of my eye, and then down this beautiful mountainside, there was just this massive field of ramps, and it was like this magical experience, and you can really connect with the soil, and your knees are in the soil, and you're pulling out ramps. It's like the most amazing thing. During this time, when ramps are in season, fiddleheads are in season, and then morel mushrooms will start to hit. And then in the summer, you start hitting those mid and late summer mushrooms, chanterelles and porcinis and black trumpet mushrooms, which are some of my favorite. And then you hit right into the fall, where you start picking maitakes or hen of the woods mushrooms, right through to the ultimate season, which is matsutakes or pine mushrooms, which in Japan are like the most prized mushrooms. If you pick too many ramps, there'll be no more ramps. We try to pick mostly just the leaves. We pick very small percentage of what is actually out there. So a lot of it's about conservation. And that goes with mushrooms and fish and beef. You always kind of want to find where the balance is of sustainability. Once we're in the kitchen and we're using these products, you don't use them as you would use a bunch of celery that you bought at the grocery store. You use them with a greater respect. You need to get every ounce of whatever this thing can give, because you either picked it or you know the person that picked it. It's just like a critical thing to make sure that everything gets used to the best of its ability. You're trying to connect it to the place that it came from. You're connecting it to the travels that you've done, that you've had something similar and you want to introduce a new ingredient into a classic traditional dish from somewhere else. So we went out with Tracy Chang, her husband, and her 2 kids. They own Pagu in Boston. So she actually made a Spanish tortilla, which kind of connects her back to where she learned to cook, which is in northern Spain. Stuff with potatoes and eggs, and she added ramps to that. So it really showed her connection to where she's been before, what she loves to eat, and also brings it back to the ramps. And we said, okay, I'm gonna cook a big fat steak, because I love a big fat steak, and we're gonna garnish that steak with a bunch of ramps, sauteed ramps. We're also gonna make a ramp salsa verde. We also made a pizza, so a Neapolitan style pizza. We used burrata that our friends at Volturno made. We put some Calabrian chili oil on top of it, and obviously lots and lots of grilled ramps. As chefs, we wanna be storytellers. The whole point of the restaurant, the whole point of what we do is to connect with different people, to connect with different products, and tell that story to all of our guests. To me, that story is taking Vermont Wagyu, which is very close to where we were picking ramps in Massachusetts, and then combining that with the ramps in the woods with our friends. It's just like a delicious combination. There's just an infinite amount of things that you can learn about wild products, cultivated things. There's an unbelievable wealth of information that you can gain from any fisherman, any farmer, and just have that connection is just really important to me. Sourcing locally instead of buying from a big box store allows us to tell a different story to our guests. So when they come in, we're actually giving them the story of Central Massachusetts, which is now the story of Dead Horse Hill, and which is now our guest story of their meal and their experience.